Hi guys, my name's Yuji and today we're going to be building this workbench here and installing this light. Alright, so this light that we're installing is a 2 foot by 4 foot LED light and is intended for commercial spaces, but we're going to go ahead and install that here for a little bit more lighting in our workshop. The box that you see me unscrewing here contains a whole bunch of wires that we'll need to connect to the light fixture on the wall. And in order to do that, we will have to connect this green wire to the ground and the white and black to the positive and negative leads up in the box. Now onto the building of the frame. So this frame gave me a little bit of trouble. I ended up getting the shorter brace there. Bit backwards. It turns out I put it on upside down, and so I had to unscrew it all and redo it. So one thing that's important to note, whenever you're working with electricity, you should always turn off the power at your fuse box. So moving on to the light fixture itself now, we're just going to be unscrewing that with the power off, and while I faff around with these cables and wires for a while, I would just like to talk to you guys about what I intend to do with this channel. My main goals are to explore a bunch of different forms of artistry, crafts, and a few different professions. This is the first time that I've ever edited a video or made anything like this and filmed it myself, so I would just like to ask that you guys give me as much input as possible and honestly tear me a new one. I really need to learn from this, so if you have any pointers for me, I'd greatly appreciate that. Back to installing the light for a moment. This is Breanna. She is my girlfriend and will be appearing from time to time in these videos.
Woof.
Right now we are just installing the bracket into the ceiling now. A word of note, this is very difficult to do on your own, so I would really recommend getting a second person to help you out if you are intending on putting one of these lights up. It's quite awkward to do and could really use the extra hands. Anyway, one of the things that I would really like to do on this channel is start off by making some resin pours, in particular making some resin dice. I have a background in fine arts and I think this should be a nice starting off point. I want these dice to be something special, something that is unique and wouldn't be something that many people would have in their collection. I'd like to do some resin painting and also incorporate some 3D printed elements into the center of the die. I think that would really make them pop and add an element to differentiate them from most die sets. I also love D&D and happen to be a dungeon master myself, and this is another aspect that I would like to incorporate into this channel. In addition to this, I love tea, so I'd love to make some ceramic teapots and teacups for my teacup collection. I have a kiln I can fire them in, so that would be another good project for us to do. Do keep in mind that I've never done any of this stuff before, so I will be learning along with you guys, and I'll take you through the motions and the ups and downs of everything. And just like that, our light is done. Now with all this extra light, it's time to get started on our workbench. For this project, we'll need a few different tools, but most are pretty minor. The major ones are a circular saw, a power drill, and a couple of clamps. This project was designed to fit in my very small car. I only have about a 2 foot by 5 foot space, so every single board here is 2 foot by 5 feet. In order to make the tabletop itself, which is going to be 5 feet by 3 feet, I have to join a couple pieces together. So first things first, we need to mark off our points and get our straightest 2x4, clamp it down to each board so we can cut a straight edge. Now you're free to do this with just your eye if you like, and that might get you the results you want, but I found this to be the easiest method for myself. With our boards now cut to length, for the tabletop we can begin to work on the legs. So these legs are fairly simple. They're just two 2x4s glued and screwed together. So the first thing we need to do is spread out our glue and clamp them together. That way we can drive our screws in. The screws are spaced apart about every foot or so, maybe a little bit less. But I'm paying careful attention to not have any screws in the very center of the board. The table height is set to 30 inches, so we need to ensure that our legs are going to be 29¼ inches long. So if there's a section that has a screw in it that falls within that number, we're going to be in trouble. Next up, we need to build the frame that the tabletop will sit on, and this will also be attached to the legs. So we need to cut out 4 pieces here. These pieces are going to be 4 inches less than the total length of either side. This will allow for a 2-inch overhang of the tabletop over the frame. Attaching the frame together is a fairly simple procedure. I'm just going to drill some pilot holes and then chamfer those edges so the screws sit flush against the surface of the wood. As a quick side note here, some of you may have noticed my grapefruit socks and sandals. I had lunch, so my shoes changed. So now comes the time to join our 2 pieces of our tabletop together. We're going to use the offcut from our previous cut and just ensure that it fits inside of the frame. Look at how straight that cut is. So it's not a big deal. I'm just going to square off that edge again and do a cut with my eye. That's much better. I had a slight lack of forethought here, as I'm just realizing now that my circular saw cannot cut through more than 3 inches in a single pass. So I've had to mark all sides of the 2x4s, and I will be cutting them in 2 passes. Now to join up the 2 halves of our tabletop, I'm gluing and screwing in place this extra sheet that we cut down. This is going inside of the frame and will be joined with many screws. In order for the frame in the background to properly sit around, it is important that this board be centered. So make sure your measurements are accurate and you're not leaving anything to chance. Now, as I mentioned earlier, we are leaving a 2-inch gap on all sides, so this frame is going to be 4 inches shorter in total length. In order to affix the frame to the tabletop, we are using a pocket hole jig. This one is fairly small, but it will get the job done. In our pocket holes, we're going to use some screws that are only 1.5 inches long. We do not want to pierce through the tabletop surface, so it's going to be pretty important that we choose a small screw rather than a larger one. Just make sure whatever screw you use is not going to go through your surface. Now finally onto our table legs. So there's a few different things we're going to use. One thing is pocket holes on 2 sides, that way we can screw it down to the tabletop surface. In order to give it a little bit more support, We are going to do 2 screws on each visible side, and these ones will be going into the frame. Now, I used some very long screws here. They are 4 inches long. You do not need screws of this length. You can easily get this done by screwing in from the opposite side of the 2x4s. Your screws are just going to be visible in this case.
Yeah. Well, that's everything for today. Thank you guys so much for watching.
And see you guys next time.
Bye, guys.
Bye.